Ever get that feeling, when someone seems just too perfect? Like almost unnervingly ideal?
Yeah.
That's the unsettling territory we're diving into today as we unpack this book review of The Boyfriend by Freida McFadden.
Ah, yes. McFadden, she's a master at crafting these characters that walk that tightrope between charming and creepy.
Right.
What stood out to me from this review was how she uses these common societal expectations, particularly around dating, to build that suspense.
Okay, let's unpack this. The reviewer paints this picture of Sydney Shaw, our protagonist, who's basically sworn off dating in NYC after a string of bad experiences. And then she meets him, handsome, successful, and a doctor.
Of course.
A doctor.
It seems like she's finally found the one.
But that's where McFadden starts to play with our perceptions, right? By giving the boyfriend this doctor status, it taps into our inherent trust in authority figures.
Oh, totally.
We're conditioned to believe doctors are caring, trustworthy individuals.
Yeah.
So it makes that potential danger even more insidious. Right, because on the surface, it's everything you'd think you want.
Exactly.
But the reviewer hints at these inconsistencies that start to emerge in his behavior.
Yeah.
The little things that don't quite add up.
Little red flags.
Yeah, and simultaneously, we hear about this string of murders targeting women on the East Coast.
And the killer's M.O., he dates them, gains their trust, and then, well, it's not a happy ending.
No.
That parallel between Sydney's seemingly perfect romance and these chilling crimes is what makes The Boyfriend so gripping. It taps into that primal fear of being deceived by someone you believe you can trust.
It's like she's holding up a mirror to our anxieties, especially in the age of online dating.
Right.
I mean, how much can you really know about someone?
Yeah.
Based on a profile or a few dates. The reviewer mentions how the story delves into Sydney's psychological struggle as she grapples with these growing suspicions.
Absolutely. This internal conflict is key. She's fallen for this guy, but those nagging doubts keep creeping in. This is where McFadden's skill as a writer really shines, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
The reviewer highlights her use of shifting perspectives and red herrings.
Yeah. Here's where it gets really interesting. Because McFadden is known for her twists, right?
Yeah.
So I'm dying to know how she uses those shifting perspectives to keep us guessing. What does the reviewer say about how it all comes together?
Well, the reviewer is careful not to reveal any spoilers.
Right.
But they do mention that these techniques make it nearly impossible to pinpoint the killer's identity early on. It's like we're right there with Sydney trying to piece together the puzzle.
Oh, wow.
Each new piece of information could be a clue or a deliberate misdirection.
Ooh, that's clever. And the way the reviewer describes the ending, breathtaking, pulse-pounding, unexpected, it sounds like McFadden delivers a knockout punch.
Yeah.
It makes me think, what if this book isn't just about a serial killer, but about the broader anxieties we face in a world where trust is so fragile?
That's a great point. And it's something we can dive into further as we explore more of what this review reveals about The Boyfriend. But first, let's shift gears a bit and talk about how McFadden crafts such believable and relatable characters.
Yeah.
Because Sydney's journey, as the reviewer describes it, seems to touch on some very real vulnerabilities we all face when it comes to dating and relationships.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
let's dive in.
All right.
Let's talk about Sydney.
Let's do it. It's funny. The reviewer mentioned how Sydney, before meeting this seemingly perfect boyfriend,
Yeah.
she had her fair share of dating disasters. We're talking guys who lied about their jobs were still attached to their mothers.
Oh, gosh.
The classics.
Those classic red flags. And it made me wonder, has anyone else out there encountered those kinds of situations?
Oh, I'm sure.
It feels like McFadden is drawing from those universal dating anxieties we all have.
What's fascinating here is how McFadden uses those relatable experiences to make Sydney instantly sympathetic.
Right.
She's not some naive damsel in distress.
Right.
She's a smart, independent woman who's been through the ringer of bad dates.
And that makes her growing suspicions about her new boyfriend all the more compelling, wouldn't you say?
Totally. Because at first, everything seems amazing. He checks all the boxes, right? Successful, charming, attentive. But then, as the reviewer points out, those cracks start to appear.
Yeah.
Little inconsistencies in his stories, odd behaviors,
Right.
things that make you go, that's weird.
And this is where the psychological suspense really starts to take hold.
Yes.
The reviewer highlights how McFadden masterfully builds that tension. It's not about jump scares or gore.
Right.
It's about that slow, creeping unease.
Yeah.
As Sydney questions whether she can trust her own instincts.
It's like that feeling you get when you watch a horror movie and you know something bad is about to happen.
Oh, yeah.
But you can't look away.
Right.
You're both terrified and completely engrossed. And the reviewer mentioned how McFadden uses the news reports of the serial killer to amplify that tension. It's almost like she's playing a game with the reader, constantly blurring the lines between what's real and what's imagined.
See, exactly. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it speaks to our own anxieties about hidden dangers.
Yeah.
And the potential for deception, especially in relationships.
Yeah.
McFadden isn't just telling a story. She's tapping into a very primal fear.
I remember a while back I went on a date with this guy who seemed amazing on paper. But as the evening went on, things just felt off.
Yeah.
His stories didn't quite add up and his mannerisms were a little too rehearsed. I ended up making up an excuse to leave early. Looking back, it was probably nothing.
Sure.
But it made me realize how easily we can be fooled by appearances.
And that's precisely the point McFadden seems to be exploring in The Boyfriend. It's about those moments when intuition whispers, something's not right.
Yeah.
But we choose to ignore it, hoping to the best.
The reviewer also mentioned something that really intrigued me. They said that one of McFadden's signature techniques is the use of shifting perspectives.
Yes.
They didn't give any specific examples, of course, because of spoilers, but they hinted that it plays a crucial role in keeping the reader guessing until the very end.
What's so clever about this technique is that it forces us to question everything we think we know.
Right.
One moment we're in Sydney's head, experiencing her doubts and anxieties.
Yeah.
And the next we're seeing events unfold through the eyes of another character.
Oh, wow.
Which could be the boyfriend or even the killer themselves.
Oh, gosh.
It's like McFadden is constantly shifting the kaleidoscope, creating a disorienting and suspenseful effect.
It makes me think, could this be why McFadden chose to use shifting perspectives? Maybe to keep us constantly questioning who we can trust.
That's a very astute observation. By presenting multiple viewpoints, McFadden doesn't allow us to settle into a comfortable sense of knowing.
Yeah.
We're kept off balance, constantly reevaluating the evidence and questioning our own judgments.
Yeah.
And that, I believe, is at the heart of what makes a psychological thriller truly captivating.
Absolutely. Like we become amateur detectives alongside Sydney.
Right.
Trying to figure out who's telling the truth and who's hiding a deadly secret. And just when we think we've cracked the case, McFadden throws in another twist, another red herring to keep us on the edge of our seats.
The reviewer specifically called out those red herrings as a hallmark of McFadden's writing.
Right.
They're not just there to mislead, they serve a deeper purpose. They force us to confront our own biases, our tendency to jump to conclusions based on limited information.
Speaking of limited information, the reviewer was understandably tight-lipped about the ending. They mentioned it was breathtaking, pulse-pounding, and completely unexpected, which has me dying to know what happens.
Of course.
But they did say that it left them questioning everything they thought they knew.
And isn't that the sign of a truly great thriller? The kind that stays with you long after you finish the book.
Absolutely. It makes me wonder, what is it about this genre, about these stories of suspense and deception that we find so captivating? Is it the thrill of the unknown, the challenge of solving the puzzle, or something deeper? Something that speaks to our own vulnerabilities and anxieties in a world where trust is so often tested?
Those are excellent questions, and ones that I think The Boyfriend, based on this review, might just be able to answer.
Right.
Because this story, with its blend of romance, suspense, and psychological complexity, seems to touch on something very real, very human. It speaks to our need for connection, our fear of betrayal, and the delicate balance of trust that holds our relationships together.
Okay, before we get too deep into those philosophical waters, I do want to circle back to the ending, because even though the reviewer didn't reveal any spoilers, they did hint that the ending raises some thought-provoking questions about the nature of trust deception and those dark secrets that can lurk beneath seemingly perfect surfaces.
And that brings us to a crucial theme that the reviewer highlighted: the exploration of trust and vulnerability, especially within the context of modern dating. Because Sydney's journey, as it's described in this review, seems to mirror many of the challenges we all face in navigating love and relationships in the digital age.
Yeah, it's almost like The Boyfriend is holding up a mirror to our own dating anxieties. I mean, think about it. We meet someone online or even through friends, and we see this carefully curated version of them.
Right.
But how much can we truly know about a person's past, their true intentions?
Yeah.
The reviewer really emphasized how McFadden explores this tension between the desire for connection and the fear of vulnerability.
And that's what makes Sydney's journey so compelling. She's a relatable character who's yearning for a genuine connection. But in doing so, she opens herself up to the possibility of being hurt, betrayed, even.
Right.
It speaks to a very real fear, especially in the age of online dating, where it's easy to create a false persona.
It makes you wonder if technology has made us more susceptible to this kind of deception. Or if it's always been a part of the human experience. I mean, haven't there always been con artists and manipulators preying on vulnerable people?
Absolutely. But what's interesting is how McFadden uses the setting of modern dating, with its reliance on apps and social media, to heighten that sense of unease. It's like she's saying, look, even in this hyper-connected world, we're still susceptible to the same old tricks.
And it's not just about romantic relationships, right? I
Yeah.
think this theme of trust and vulnerability extends to all kinds of relationships, friendships, family, even professional connections. How many times have we heard stories of people being scammed or betrayed by someone they thought they knew well?
That's a great point. It seems McFadden is tapping into a universal truth about human nature, the inherent risks we take when we open ourselves up to others. And the reviewer highlighted how this theme is woven throughout The Boyfriend, adding a layer of psychological depth to the thriller aspect.
Okay, so if you were in Sydney's shoes dating this seemingly perfect guy who just happens to fit the profile of a serial killer, at what point would those alarm bells start ringing for you? What would be your red flag moment?
That's a question worth pondering. Would it be a subtle change in his behavior, an inconsistency in his stories, or perhaps a gut feeling that something's just not right? It's fascinating to consider how our own personal experiences and anxieties would shape our perception of the situation.
It makes you realize that these kinds of stories aren't just entertainment. They also serve as cautionary tales, reminding us to be aware, to trust our instincts, and maybe to do a little background check on that new Tinder date.
Perhaps. But more importantly, I think The Boyfriend, as this review suggests, encourages us to engage in a deeper level of self-reflection. It asks us to examine our own vulnerabilities, our capacity for trust, and the choices we make when faced with uncertainty in relationships.
So it sounds like The Boyfriend is more than just a thrilling page-turner.
Yeah.
It's a story that delves into the complexities of human relationships, the fine line between love and deception, and the ever-present potential for darkness to lurk beneath the surface of even the most seemingly perfect connections.
And based on this insightful review, it seems Freida McFadden has once again crafted a story that will stay with readers long after they've turned the final page. A story that not only entertains, but also provokes thought, and perhaps even a healthy dose of self-examination.
Well, I don't know about you, but I am definitely adding The Boyfriend to my reading list. This deep dive has left me with a lot to think about, and I'm eager to see how McFadden weaves together those themes of romance, suspense, and psychological intrigue.
I agree. And I hope our listeners feel the same way. If this exploration of The Boyfriend has sparked your curiosity, we encourage you to seek out the book and embark on your own reading adventure. And remember, sometimes the most captivating stories are the ones that challenge our perceptions and leave us with lingering questions about ourselves and the world around us.
Until next time, fellow deep divers, happy reading. And remember, sometimes those too good to be true situations, well, they just might be.